Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, reaction to President Trump's second State of the Union message. The General Assembly debates allowing the sale of pot brownies. Should Lee Middle School be renamed? And what is going on in the state of Virginia? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the former Majority Leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson. Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher. Former Maryland Assistant Secretary for Business, Bill Askinazi, and education activist Cynthia Rubenstein. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Delayed 1 week due to the partial government shutdown, President Trump delivered his second State of the Union address. After a bruising month of political pettifoggery, tensions were high Tuesday evening as the 45th President of the United States addressed a joint session of Congress. Mr. Trump spoke about the strength of the American economy, the record unemployment statistics for all Americans, but in particular women, African American, and Hispanics. He spoke at length about the need to defend the country's southern borders. He laid down a marker regarding what he views as the drift by the country towards socialism, vowing that it would not happen on his watch. The president questioned the continued need for U.S. military presence in Afghanistan and Syria. The president also called for greater cooperation and unity with the Congress, but in the next breath chastised the Congress for continuing investigations of his administration. John, in 1858, Abraham Lincoln is famously quoted as saying that a house divided cannot stand against itself when discussing the national divide over slavery. But many believe that the divide in the country right now is as great and maybe even greater. Can there be a rapprochement between the Congress and the administration?
I don't think it's going to happen very quickly. I think one of the problems that exists in the country today between Republicans and Democrats is you have a president who can't put down his phone and get off of Twitter. Frankly, I mean, I think he manages to antagonize people he doesn't need to antagonize. Even he goes after Democrats, but he also goes after John McCain. So I think that's a central problem to the political structure right now. I think the other thing, I mean, I actually thought his speech was not bad, and I think the one thing that was missing that actually would have helped get people back together is to say from everybody, on the part of Congress, on the part of the executive, we're sorry about the shutdown. That was not good. And I think particularly for people in Maryland, where there was a supersized impact just because there's a lot of federal workers here, that would have really gone a long way to kind of bringing people together, but it didn't happen.
Well, look, I understand your position, but I want to take you back. I mean, I think the fact is that with the election of George Bush in 1980 and the election of Donald Trump, Democrats have not been willing to accept the election of those two men as president. They've questioned the legitimacy.
Right.
And this has caused a tremendous...
Because they didn't win the popular vote. It wasn't.
They still won.
I understand.
Under the system, they still won.
But
and if Hillary Clinton had won in the same fashion, you should have expected.
Casey, I don't disagree with you, but it created an atmosphere of where there wasn't an acceptance of the rightful ownership of the presidency. Right. Now, that's wrong. I honestly think it's wrong. I think we have to come together. I think this country definitely wants the parties working together. That was a clear message from the last election. And I'll tell you frankly, I think the Democrats can overstep here real easily.
Well, I want to go to Mark. Mark, okay. I mean, admitted that President Trump is a lightning rod for criticism. But this is only the second year. He's just finished his second year. They say that in Bill Clinton's third year in office, he pivoted and he was able to work with the Congress and make a success of the remaining 2 years and be reelected. Is it possible we'll see something like that this third year?
Well, I must say I'm pinching myself because I was working on a Hill on the House side when that happened, and I'm trying to visualize 1995 as the, quote, good old days of bipartisanship, because there was a lot of back and forth at that time. That said, what works in politics is when people are able to compartmentalize, take extraneous issues and put it aside, and then focus on things that are potentially areas of common agreement, and ignore everything else for at least the conversation that takes place when that happens. And that's what we need to have here, and that's when parties are able to come together and work on issues.
So Bill, I mean, John mentioned the fact that the State of the Union speech, at least, was more balanced than one might have expected. Is this going to send a positive message, and will we see a change?
Well, first of all, I think it was masterful political theater. President Trump was not speaking to the never Trump Democrats. He was speaking to the independents, and he marginalized the far left socialists immediately. We will not be a socialist country again. That was directed to a lot of moderate Democrats. That was directed to a lot of independents. He also humanized it by pointing out more heroes in the audience than I would dare say any other State of the Union speech had done. So he brought heroes, minority members, into the conversation, and he talked about the economy, and it was a very tough rebuttal because he came across as a very reasonable guy, which I think he accomplished his mission.
Cynthia, aren't we having sort of a Trump fatigue syndrome over all these investigations? Isn't it time just to give it up and let the guy finish out his term in office?
Adam Schiff doesn't believe so for the House Intelligence
Well, what
Committee.
do you think?
I think there are some financial issues that are worth investigating, especially vis-a-vis foreign interests and how they may or may not be connected to family members, associates, and the president's financial interests. And so that's what the House Intelligence Committee is, I think, primarily interested in looking at.
Can I mention one other
Yeah,
thing about that?
wrap it up for us.
I mean, I thought Trump did a fairly decent job, and he recognized some winners on the other side, all the women who got elected to Congress. I mean, I thought that was really smart. Stacey Abrams did a good job too. I mean, it was one of the best response things I've seen in any State of the Union thing, and I think she's obviously a rising star and probably
She's
running
got to
for the
win
Senate.
something first, John. We'll see. We'll see if she ever wins. Maybe
Well,
she'll
she may,
be
Casey.
a rising star once she's
She may.
elected dog catcher. The first few weeks of the General Assembly
She was
here in Maryland
minority leader.
is fascinating to watch. Well, she's not now, because it's interesting to see which issues seem to grab the attention of the delegates and the press. There is an effort to strip the Comptroller's Office of its authority over alcohol, tobacco, and motor fuels, which has Peter Franchot hopping mad. And there is a mixed reaction to a proposed corporate tax cut that some said would keep businesses in Maryland. There's a lot of debate about the redistricting of legislative districts, and it goes on, of course. Mark, the medical marijuana industry is seeking legislation that would allow pot brownies and other edibles to be sold. Is that something that's of imperative and needs to be passed now?
Probably not imperative. I will say that while we have medical marijuana, it's important, I know it's acknowledged by the industry, of not marketing it to children. And so, for example, the FDA in the cigarette realm has gone after menthol cigarettes precisely because they don't want it marketed to children. So I think it's important, if they do anything with the brownies, pot brownies, or what have you, that it not be done in a way that has it marketed to people who shouldn't get it.
Full disclosure, Casey, I'm the
Yeah.
owner of a medicinal dispensary in the state of Maryland. Well, have that said, I have firsthand knowledge. The reason why there are foods, or the push for foods, is a lot of people can't ingest smoke. Right. They can't take other forms. So what they do is when they hit the digestive system, it's a much more effective way to get their medicine, and a lot of old people can't do that. And you're smirking because
Well, you just got your 30-second advertising in.
By the way,
where are you located? All right, John.
Let me answer.
No, we got to go. We only have 2 minutes
I'm
left.
only kidding.
All right, John.
Yes, sir.
What's going on with Hogan and this land swap out in Western Maryland, and the proposal to put the Redskins on this federal land, or this land next to the
bottom line,
big casino?
he's desperately trying to hold on to the Redskins being in the state of Maryland where they are right now. I mean, and they're definitely going to move. They don't like the location where they are. That was a stadium that Snyder did not build.
Right.
So I think he wants to build his own palace. And the bottom line is it's controversial because every big development is controversial. This is not a surprise. The swap is just a way of making some amends to the park areas that are involved. I mean, I don't see how they're going to save the team and keep it here. They just got they're going to get a better deal from DC.
Well, I don't think so.
Well, I bet.
And of course, they won't get anything from Virginia now. So, Cynthia, the other big topic, of course, is school openings in the state. And what the heck is going on? Why is there so much controversy and legislative kerfuffle over when schools are opened?
It's about local control. It's about local school board control over when schools start and end. And right now, with the governor's executive order and edict, which was also encouraged by Peter Franchot, schools are really squeezed to get in their instructional days, especially when there's bad weather and they have to have a certain number of planning days, et cetera. So it's a squeeze for local school systems, and it's about local control.
Yeah, and my understanding is already they're extending the school year further into June anyway. I mean, is that something the kids are really going to like, or the parents are really going to like? I'm not sure that makes sense. I think local control. I'm going to shout out to my
spoiled, rotten anyway.
Yeah,
John.
listen. I want to talk to my Republican colleagues here. You know, when did the Republicans become the government of, massive control and not letting local control happen this way?
The beautiful thing is we're out of time and we can't answer your question. So when we come back, we're going to talk about whether a particular middle school here in Montgomery County should be renamed and what the heck is going on in Virginia. It must be the water. Stay tuned. And welcome back. County Council President Nancy Navarro has proposed that Colonel E. Brooke Lee Middle School be renamed because the late Mr. Lee is a reputed racist. Cynthia, Lee is credited with creating the land use and zoning system for the county, pretty big deal, when he was the founder of the county planning department. But was he a racist? What's the evidence?
The evidence is pretty clear. He also, with properties that he owned, he had restrictive covenants against African Americans renting or owning those properties. He also was a resistor for civil rights measures in the 60s in Montgomery County, and once made a public statement that desegregation does not work. His own grandson, who is still in the family business, Bruce Lee, supports the change of the name for the school because he recognizes that that part of his grandfather's legacy is not honorable. And so that's what is behind this. And this is not the first time this has come up. It has come up before. One of the current school board members brought it up several years ago. It went nowhere. This time Nancy Navarro has brought it forth at the urging of one of the parents of a student who goes to Colonel E. Brooke Lee. And it's about time.
Okay. Bill, you agree with that?
Well, look, there's no room for racism. We could all agree to that. The issue, the broader social issue that I want to just throw out here is there's no room for sexual harassment. There's no room for any aberrant, conduct. And we can't rush to judgment on people's past in different mores in different centuries. You made a compelling argument. However, don't we need an inquiry, more of a due process to really, you're taking someone from the past and you're really putting them in a light that may or may not hold up.
Yeah, if I could though, I mean, I think that there's a combination here, which is that it's a good opportunity for us to have a conversation about the legacy of racist, segregationist, Jim Crow laws that were on the books in Maryland and the history in Montgomery County as well. And this becomes kind of an opportunity for education. There are good things about Colonel Lee and there are bad things about Colonel Lee, and simply putting him to a side to ignore what happened is really the bad idea as well. we ought to elevate this and make
And
it a
there-
teaching lesson.
And there will be an
Yeah.
examination and a discussion and a due process.
Sure.
And
That's what needs to be
that's
done.
something that's a Maryland focus too. I mean, when I first got to the legislature, I was amazed at looking at Southern Maryland. It's like a different place. It's like Virginia. I
Well,
mean,
speaking of Virginia, we got something.
yeah.
We got to go to our Virginia topic. And like a wind-aided wildfire, the controversy that has overwhelmed Virginia politics for the past 10 days is a spectacle that's hard to believe. First, Governor Ralph Northam was swept into controversy on Tuesday of last week while commenting about late-term abortion proposal in the legislature. Next came the release of the infamous medical school yearbook photo and the confusing denial of the governor delivered last Saturday. Before the Twitterverse could even react, the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, was accused of a sexual assault, and just today, a second accuser has come out. Then finally, the Attorney General, Mark Herring, admitted he had worn blackface in college. This is a train wreck, folks. John, are all Democrats in Virginia suspect?
Suspect. I like that. That's very great, Casey. Of course not. I mean, this actually is a bipartisan scandal. You have Republicans, particularly in the House, or the Senate rather, in Virginia, who have also come out admitting that they wore blackface. I mean, this is a problem that is systemic in many cultures, not just in Virginia, but in many other places, as I just mentioned. I think it's something that it's got to work itself out. We now have 3 Democrats who are in line to succeed, or 2 Democrats to succeed the governor. Both have problems. I don't see this getting solved very quickly, and I think we've all got to kind of take a deep breath.
This isn't a trivial offense, do you think?
I'm sorry?
This is not a trivial offense, these allegations.
Not at all. I think this is very significant. It's got to be resolved. These things, I mean, particularly with the second accuser for the lieutenant governor now, I think that's really an issue that needs to get resolved before you decide who the next governor is going to be, assuming this current governor is going to resign, which I think he should.
But this is what's so compelling. Yesterday, the Washington Post issued an editorial saying that he should resign.
Right.
And then today they run an article saying that he's surviving by not saying anything.
Well, the editorial boards and the news people never talk to each other at the Washington Post.
And the Washington Post are one and the same, right?
No.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
So, Mark,
Clear line.
John talked about the succession problems.
Right.
But given the order of succession in Virginia, if all 3 Democrats are forced to resign, the Republican Speaker of the House ascends to the governor's mansion. So does that mean it won't happen?
Well, I think all of that is pretty unlikely. I mean, there are a variety of scenarios that would play out. Frankly, the allegations against the Attorney General are the weakest of the 3.
Well, how are they any different than what Governor Northam is accused of?
Because the Attorney General apologized. And
Oh, he
it was
apologized.
an
but he wasn't,
unequivocal
and
apology.
he wasn't photographed with somebody in a KKK.
Well, and he came out on his own. That's the
And
other
that
thing.
too,
I
yes.
mean, Northam, he like got caught,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Casey,
Just because there's no photo doesn't mean it wasn't bad.
No,
But this
I
isn't
know.
limited to a local issue. This has national ramifications for the identity of the party and inconsistent treatment of people who are accused.
Totally agree with you, Bill. I mean, one of the real interesting things I've seen in the last couple of days is the Democratic presidential candidates trying to figure out what to say about Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. I mean, what are they going to say when they were saying these
And the national
things?
phenomenon of anybody who ever went to any school
Right.
anywhere
Right.
looking at their yearbooks.
Right.
That Wallace Lowe of the University of Maryland has performed an audit on Maryland's yearbooks and found 3 different years between the 1960s and 1970 with blackface.
Yeah.
So this is endemic.
Yeah, and I think particularly in Virginia, it's problematic because you now have the 3 top people in Maryland or in Virginia who are all Democrats who have scandals on top of them. So everybody needs to take a deep breath. And I do think the governor should step down. I just don't think the way he's handled it,
But he can't
But
step
when
he can't
can he
step-
do that? I don't know when he can do
step
that.
down with the cloud over the lieutenant governor.
I totally agree with that. So the question is, how does this play out? And I just don't think we know yet.
So, I mean, aren't we getting to a point, though, where we should just throw the bums out?
Well, let me first of all, Casey, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
This is
You
a
can't do
this
that.
this is a program about politics in Montgomery County, Maryland.
I understand
Okay,
that.
so
But this
I
is-
understand.
But this has implications because it's our neighboring state,
Right.
And it's important for us to know what, as you said, there really were two Marylands at one time.
Yes, there were.
And we have a past and history that we too have to examine and resolve. So we're out of time. I would love to have answered your question. I hope I brushed it off as well as I could. when we come back, parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, John Hurson.
I just want to do a shout out to Montgomery County. The government is actually making special preparations to help local congregations, religious congregations, literally refortify their actual facilities because of what happened up in Pittsburgh. That's a very smart thing to do because there is, hate is ubiquitous in certain places. I hope it's not here, but it could be here, and you never know what's going to happen. So I really think what they're doing in terms of making grants to these congregations to, get security, better security, makes a lot of sense. So it's a good thing.
Thank you, John. Mark Uncapher, your parting shot.
After the Amazon Headquarters 2 announcement was made, there was a great deal of opposition to the second piece of it. Obviously, Virginia got one piece, New York City got the other, to the amount of subsidies that were being provided to Amazon from New York. And today came the news that Amazon may reconsider and not go have as part of its headquarters in New York. So here's an opportunity for Maryland to get a second shot at the apple, and we can have half of the second in Virginia and half of the second in Maryland.
Thank you, Mark. That's a great idea. Bill Askinazi, your parting shot.
Okay. Our police chief, Tom Manger, will be retiring soon. I know Tom personally. He has been one of the most incredible public servants. I was a classmate of his in Leadership Montgomery, and my son was one of those hostages back at Discovery, if you guys remember that. And the chief moved in, and he had his cell phone that he gave me to reassure me of these things. Those are a little bit of snapshots and tidbits. He'll be missed. He said he's going to be staying around. There'll be a huge celebration for him in October. So let's wish him all farewell and good tidings. Tom.
Thank you, Bill. Cynthia Rubenstein, your parting shot.
Okay, well, next fall, Montgomery Blair High School is going to offer the first social studies course on hip hop, history, and culture. And I wish I was a Blair High School student so I could take that course. But you lucky Blair students, that course is going to have a line around the block for that elective. I think it's tremendous.
Thank you, Cynthia. One of my favorite sports programs is Al Galdi on Thursday morning when he has Go-Go Thursday. Of course, I don't know what go-go music is other than I like the beat and it sounds really, really good. So sounds like a fun event. I want to thank the panel. Good. We agreed on some things tonight. I can't believe it. We're not supposed to do that. I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken. Bill, I agree with you.